Hey Mum, today we're going to be cooking something that you've actually inspired me to cook, and that is Awaze Tibs. And I'm very sorry for any Ethiopians who may be watching, and in case I absolutely butchered that enunciation, but yeah, that's what we're making. Basically, as you know, it's delicious lamb-based, quite a thick stew that's served with sautéed vegetables and is served on top of injera. Which, for those of you watching who don't know what injera is basically a sour pancake. It's sort of like, it's made from teff flours, brown flour. It's quite light and spongy, and it's quite sour, which is really nice. You basically tear off chunks of it, and you use that to scoop up your food and eat it like that instead of using knives and forks. Honestly, I quite like eating with my hands. There's something just really nice about just, cut out that silly etiquette that we're all required to engage in, that nonsense. Just use your hands, like they work perfectly fine. And it's just fun. This is the first time I've done this dish. Very much so the first time that I've made injera. I've never had a go at it before because the proper recipes for injera require you to go through a week-long fermentation process with your flour. I don't really have that sort of time, and I don't feel like preparing a week in advance to make just a single meal. So I'm just going to do that shortcut method. It's just a method where I'll be using, a few little tricks to speed up the process, so I don't have to wait so bloody long for the fermentation fairies to sprinkle their magic onto the mix of flour and water and create basically a sourdough pancake. But yeah, anyway, let's get right into it. I'm excited. I'm pumped. I'm hyped. I'm ready for this. I want to eat! What we see here are the ingredients for the meal that we'll be making. Of course, the most important part, the lamb. This is just a kilo of lamb leg roast, boneless, because, I can't be bothered to cut the meat off the bone, and also just buying the pre-diced, pre-chunked lamb meat costs way too much. It's like $26 a kilo, and this is what, like $21 a kilo. Cheaper, easier. Tomato paste, very important for that delicious tomatoey flavor. Onion, because, basically every Ethiopian stew begins with a base of onion. Really good. I've got buckwheat flour for the... We've got tomatoes, several tomatoes here that'll go directly into the dish. Plus I'll probably cut up one to put through the couscous, because I'm going to make a light couscous side dish. There's going to be, in that couscous, there's going to be a little bit of feta. Nice little chunk of feta here. And then through that couscous, there's going to be a little bit of lime drizzled through. Some mixed fruit put in there, just because I like a little bit of sweetness in my couscous, and it's, refreshing, exciting. Got that apple cider vinegar to make the injera sour. We've got buckwheat flour, because, all the stores near my work in this Brisbane CBD are Anglo as fuck, and none of them have teff flour. So we just had to go with the next closest thing that I could get at Woolies, which is buckwheat. I got dry yeast. That's to make the cheating version of injera. So yeah. And besides that, of course, got some garlic. Very important. Can never have too much garlic. And wine. Got some red wine here, because I need a little dash of that. Anyway, this is everything. Oh, and also there'll be a little bit of pepper, a little bit of salt, and there's going to be a mix of spices, which I'll get into later. Anyway, let's begin. So all this is what we will need in order to make the injera. We have 2 sachets of 7 grams of instant yeast. We have 2 bags of buckwheat flour. Hopefully there will be a cup's worth in there. If not, we're going to have to do some fudging with the recipe. We've got some apple cider vinegar. We will need about 4 tablespoons of this. I'll be checking my measurements and putting them on screen, probably right here at a later point. And we'll need 2 cups of warm water. So, let's begin. So first, I'll just measure out my buckwheat flour just to be sure I actually have the right amount. Because I have a sneaking suspicion I won't have quite a cup. Never mind. I'm full of shit. Ignore me. I do have way more than a cup. So, yeah, that'll be enough. So the recipe says to sift the flour, so flour the sift is what we will do. Just sift that out. One thing I forgot to mention is that the recipe calls for half a cup of plain flour. So I'll just chuck in half a cup. Sifted, of course. Alrighty, now we simply stir in the yeast. Put in the half teaspoon of salt. Alrighty, then just pour in the warm water and just stir. Stir, stir, stir. And now into this mix, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons. Actually, I might do 2.5 because I like a really sour injera. 1, 2, 3. Well, 2.5. 2.5. And just, of course, stir, stir, stir. And the recipe says to stir until the batter is nice and smooth. Alrighty. Now the reason why we do this at the very beginning is because this now has to go and sit for a whole hour to bubble and ferment. So that's why we do it at the very beginning, because the rest of the meat and everything, it only needs to cook for 45 minutes. By the time that the meat is almost done cooking, so about at the 3/4 of an hour through cooking mark, this will be ready to put into the pan and begin cooking the flatbreads. So we're just going to leave this off to the side so the yeast can work its magic, and then in the meantime we're going to be cutting up the onions, the shallots, the tomatoes, the meat, and basically browning everything. Very important order of process. Injera bread, make your injera first. Brown the meat, then brown the onion, then activate the spices, and then add it all to the pot, chuck in the wine, the tomato paste, and let that all begin to cook. The couscous comes close to the very end because it's the simplest part of the whole thing. Anyway, let's continue. Alrighty, on to the next part. That is onion. We're going to cut up 4 onions, 2 shallots, going to be a bit of a rough chop. This is a sort of like a little bit more rustic stew. It doesn't have to be chopped up as finely as something like a dorowat. And that's going to be a video at some point. I'm going to be doing a video on dorowat, which is quite possibly one of my single most favorite pieces of food. I'm going to be making a video on dorowat at some point. It's probably my single favorite piece. My single favorite meal. It's amazing. Time for the shallots. And for the shallots, we're just going to do a bit of we're going to do relatively fine dice. Shallots, a shallot. Now, we've got to do some garlic first. So I can't do a full berbere mix because I don't have everything. But I've got paprika, cinnamon, ginger, garlic powder, and onion powder, and cumin. I'm going to do roughly 3 tablespoons of paprika, half a tablespoon of ginger, half a tablespoon of cinnamon, tablespoon of that's not a tablespoon really, tablespoon of cumin, about a tablespoon of garlic powder, and about a tablespoon of onion powder. And that'll be our berbere mix. I'm not going to use all of this because this is a ridiculous amount. I'll probably use half of this. Alrighty, time for browning. I'm going to put a dash of olive oil in the pot. Chuck the meat into this bowl. First got to flour it. So chuck in a couple pinches of flour, just plain flour. Give it a shake. That's not enough. Shake, shake, shake. Shake, shake, shake. Shake that lamb. Not quite enough. Alrighty, that should be enough. Time to brown it. Chuck in some of the lamb. Not all of it though, because we need space for the lamb to be able to move. And we're just stirring it, make sure it doesn't stick, and so it gets nice and evenly browned. Alrighty, so after, I think I've missed a chunk of footage because my phone ran out of storage because I have about 10,000 or so photos on there. But basically, the onions have been nice and sauteed. I've just deglazed the pot with some red wine, and I'm just activating the shallots and the garlic. Then once that is ready, I'm going to put in there, I'm going to put everything back in there. I'm going to chuck in the tomato paste, I'm going to chuck in the meat, the onion, the spices, and then I'm going to just let that sit there for about 45 minutes. Just come in from the side, vertical. Oh my god, it is so nice to come home after a long day of just boring to death in an architectural job. Just to come home and just cook some nice food. Because goddamn, fuck me, that job is boring. Alrighty, that's the tomato chopped up. Time to add it to the pot. Time to get everything into the pot. Tomato paste. Alright, stir that together. And onion into the pot. Lamb into the pot. Tomato into the pot. Spices into the pot. Make sure you scrape the sides. At the moment it's very thick, so I'm just going to add a little bit of water. Then my secret weapon, a little dash of MSG. Got on low heat now, so it's not going to burn as quickly. But you know, you just got to keep stirring to make sure it doesn't stick. And keeps cooking. Got to keep cooking. Alright, time to begin cooking the injera. This mix has been sitting there for about an hour. As you can see, it's nice and fermented, ready to go into the pan. I sprayed some olive oil in the pan, stop the mixture from sticking. I'm getting the pan nice and hot before I put it in. And basically the way I'll do it is I'll get about 1/4 of a cup and I'll just make a swirl pattern. Then I'll pick up the pan and I'll swish it around to make sure that the swirl, the batter covers the whole pan. Then I'll get the lid, chuck it on top, and it will just sit there and cook for 2 minutes. And once it's nice and basically dry at the top, once it's no longer wet and mushy, it's done. That was a good pour. Lid goes on to trap the steam in. At this point, the meat's done. I'm gonna just turn off the heat, give it one last stir, then I'm gonna pop the lid on. In the meanwhile, I've been making couscous. So, I forgot to show what I actually did, but basically, I got basically a cup of couscous, no, a cup and a half of couscous. Put in the bowl, I put 2 cups of boiling water in there, let it sit for a minute. Now I'm just putting a couple knobs of butter in there. Oh, shit. And what I'm doing now is I'm just gonna fluff the couscous. It separates it all out so it doesn't clump up. Basically what I'm doing with it, Alrighty, couscous is fluffed. And then into this, I'm going to put a squeeze of lime. And then I'm going to chuck in, I'm going to break up some feta. I'm going to chuck some mixed fruit in there, because fuck it, why not? Let's go wild. This will add some sweetness.
Pile of sour pancakes. Yeah.
Tastes pretty close to the actual thing. Maybe it needs to be a little bit more sour. Next time I'll put in some more apple cider vinegar. That should do it. You won't believe this. I just got accused of not following the recipe by this galoot. Don't believe him. He's lying. I always follow the recipe. I'll pay you in not getting hit.
Child abuse.
Alrighty. The pancakes, or the injera, like the fake jira. Gonna roll it up to make it look, like the ones you get in the restaurant. Oh, that's really fucking hot on my fingers. Actually, put one down on each plate so the meat can go on that. It can absorb the flavor, and then each one gets another rolled up one. Look at that. Beautiful. Gorgeous. Alrighty, time to give this a little try. Tear a little bit of injera, fake injera, a little bit of couscous, chunk of meat.
Yeah. That was worth the effort. Yeah.
Bone apple teeth.